going to try so hard to get through this without laughing. Hello and welcome to Give That Fan a Podcast, hosted by Ryan Blake and Paul Valley. We're the only Orioles show that is this one and not a different one, although there are plenty of others. Thanks for choosing us. You won't regret it. At least, I hope not. That's kind of dumb. Anyway, every episode streams live on our Twitter at Give That Fan a Pod, YouTube at Give That Fan a Podcast, and Facebook.com/Orioles247. Later, you can find audio versions on Apple, Spotify, pretty much wherever you listen to podcasts, as well as at UtahStreetReport.com. Hopefully by now, Ryan and Paul have had enough time to share the live stream on their social media pages, so let's get into the show. I did it! Got that Facebook share in just under the wire.
Every time I hear, I did it, I think that you say that part live. Every time. And I'm like, you did, buddy.
I was just so proud that I actually got through it without laughing because I've recorded these voiceover intros or intro voiceovers several times over the last year. And at some point, I always just lose it. I'm not good at talking under pressure. I feel like it always makes me smile or laugh. So when I got through this one, I was so proud of myself. And I got that in before I stopped recording, and I figured I'd leave it in the intro. It is May the 4th. Are you a Star Wars guy, Paul?
Not in the slightest.
Me neither. I think I've seen like half of one of the movies.
I saw A New Hope, but the first Star Wars movie I ever saw was The Phantom Menace in theaters when I was 14 years old in 9th grade, and Jar Jar Binks was the most annoying character in cinematic history. And then as a grown man at the age of 27, I watched what did I watch? The very first one ever made, A New Hope. And I was like, I can see why people liked this in the 70s when it came out, but it didn't do anything for me, and I haven't watched one since.
Yeah, it's not my thing. Like I said, I think I got through like half of one of the movies. It wasn't for me, but I did tweet in honor of the day, "May the Gunner be with you," when he homered today. It doesn't really make sense, but I figured I would give a nod to this apparent holiday. Paul, it doesn't feel like the Orioles just won another series, but they did indeed. 7 straight series wins for the Baltimore Orioles. They have the 3rd best record in baseball, down a half game to the Atlanta Braves. They just went final in Miami a few minutes ago. So they are up on the Orioles by a half game in the overall standings. Orioles are 5th in Major League Baseball's latest power rankings. They haven't lost 2 games in a row since April 8th and 9th. They are 10-0 in series openers, 4.5 games out of first place at the top of the American League wildcard race. Paul, someone mentioned to me on Twitter today, and it blew my mind, but it makes sense. The Detroit Tigers are closer to first place right now in their division than the Orioles are in theirs. Tigers are 3.5 out of first place. Orioles are 4.5 out of first.
That's stupid.
It just makes you laugh. Baseball's a crazy game. The Rays are
who did you say
26-6?
Something like that. Who did you say lost so the Orioles gained a half game just a little bit ago, or won?
No, the Braves. The Braves beat the Marlins. So after the Orioles win, they were tied, and then the Braves won their game to go a half game ahead of the Orioles record.
Gotcha. Okay.
Overall standings, it's Tampa, and then Atlanta, and then Baltimore. Orioles have won 13 out of 16, 15 out of 19. They went 17 out of 22 in their stretch against bad teams. That's exactly what they needed to do, Paul. We talked about what the Orioles record should have been at the end of that run, and it's pretty darn close.
Yeah, man. When we saw the schedule during the off season, a lot of us said 19-9 would be a really great record. It would seem like a pipe dream, but damn if they didn't do it. 19-9 to the through the end of April, and that's awesome. And they're 21-10 now. Yeah, they've played some good baseball. I was about to say something, and I'll wait for you to get there before I say something.
Well, I was just gonna say that now begins the gauntlet of games against good teams. May is an absolute beast on the Orioles schedule, and I know what you were going to say, which is that they've played very well against the bad teams, and now they're going to be really tested.
That is not what I was going to say.
Okay. Well, please.
No. So leave it to me to be the negative guy, right? Because apparently it's crazy, man, because I legitimately do tweet 4 or 5 positive tweets for every negative one. It's just that the negative ones gain a lot of freaking traction for some reason because I have some hot takes, I guess. But the Orioles starters in this series pitched 14 and a third innings and gave up 16 runs. That's not good. And I mentioned something the other day when the Orioles won the first game of the series, when they were down 3-0 after the first inning, and they won and they came back and they won the game. And I said, in the 2014 team, I said that when I sit down to watch the Orioles, I expect them to win every night this year. And the last time I felt like that was the 2014 team. And that in 2017, when the team started 22-10, which was the best record in baseball on May 10th that year, I didn't have the same feelings that I have this year and that I had in 2014. Now, three games, the series is over later, and the Orioles are 21-10. They're a win away from that same record from 2017, and now the feeling is shifting towards that 2017 team that ended up finishing below 500. I think they won 3 of their next 13. I think they were something like 26-25 after starting 22-10. And I remember I did a spot on a national podcast. I believe it was called Baseball PhD. And they were asking about the Orioles and about how they were so good to start the year. And I said to them, this was right after Brad Brock came in and blew a save against the Tigers, but then the Orioles won it because Chris Davis hit 2 home runs in the game, including, I think, a grand slam in extra innings. And I said, look, man, they're 22-10. They have the best record in baseball. But if this pitching doesn't get figured out, they're going to fall hard and fast. And damn if they didn't. And again, they finished that year 78-85. And they haven't posted they didn't post a winning season after that until last season. I feel that way right now. Because the starting pitching has had one good week. They've had one good week. Your best starter has been Tyler Wells, and he gave up 3 home runs against the Kansas City Royals on what's today? Thursday? On Tuesday. He gave up 3 home runs against the Kansas City Royals on Tuesday. Kyle Gibson, he'd thrown 49 pitches and was pitching in the 6th inning or the 7th inning. And he ended up giving up 6 runs. They just started hitting him hard. And then today, Grayson Rodriguez goes out there, and he wasn't competitive. He gives up 6 runs. I know that these starting pitchers are better. I know they're better than how they've looked so far. But like you started to say, the gauntlet starts tomorrow. You've got immediately Atlanta, Tampa Bay. You've got the Angels. You've got the Pirates, who have the third or fourth best record in baseball. You've got the Angels. You've got the Guardians. You've got the Blue Jays. Your schedule is really freaking hard. And if you're going to pitch the way you've been pitching, that 19-9 is going to fade really fast.
That 2017 team was 22-10, and then at the end of May they were 27-24.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So I was a game.
And there was a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-game losing streak in there to Toronto, Minnesota, and Houston. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a tough test for these Orioles over the next month. 3 at Atlanta starting tomorrow, 3 at home against Tampa Bay, who just can't lose, 3 versus Pittsburgh back at home. Those 3 teams have a combined winning percentage right now, Paul, of 708.
Mm-hmm.
That's really good. And then you got 4 at home against the Los Angeles Angels, who just completed a sweep of the Cardinals. They're 18-14. You go to Toronto for 3. You go to New York to take on the Yankees for 3. And then they'll wrap up the season series against the Texas Rangers at home. They did take the series in Texas a month ago. I think that's your pizza.
Yeah, I told him to leave it on the front porch. Can you hang on one second? Continue. I'm listening.
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit more about it. So they'll wrap up their season series against the Texas Rangers at home after taking the series in Texas a month ago. They took 2 out of 3 that second series of the season. The Orioles won't play another team that currently has a losing record until Memorial Day. That's May 29th, when the Cleveland Guardians come to Baltimore. So this next stretch of games going to be very difficult. And I'll ask Paul about this when he comes back, but I was looking at the schedule and trying to wrap my head around just how difficult it's going to be for this team. And there's a real chance that the Baltimore Orioles are one of the best teams in baseball. By record, they currently are. We're going to have to see how they line up against the big dogs and see if they can take on these tougher opponents. because they haven't truly been tested yet to this point. Now, and Paul, it's a good thing you returned at this point, because I was going to ask at the end of May, the Orioles have started this month 2-1, taken 2 out of 3 from Kansas City. Do you think that they have 28 games over the course of May? Do you think that 14-14 would be disappointing, or because I think I'd be thrilled if they can pull off a 500 May.
14-14, I think, would be absolutely spectacular, because June eases up a little bit. July and August, not quite May, but they're tough. And then September, you end easy. So I said to no one in particular, I think I tweeted it out, that the Orioles, their April, June, and September schedule is super easy. So if they can play 500 ball those other 3 months, they're in good shape. So that's what I want from them. Do I want them to go 15-13, 16-12? You know, what is it, 20-8? You know, of course I do.
Absolutely.
But if they go 14-14 and then they enter June and the schedule softens up a little bit, they're 11 games above 500, and that now they can really start to gain some traction again. The frustrating thing is that this team can be amongst the best in baseball, even playing the best in baseball, if their pitching gets it all together. It's going to come down to their pitching. Can their pitching hold up? Right now, that's the biggest question mark, and we're not sure, you know?
And I want to talk about Grayson Rodriguez's start today, because he struggled. He gave up 6 runs on 8 hits in 3 2/3 innings. He walked 1, struck out 3. He did give up 3 home runs, and I was thinking about this as I was watching the game before he gave up the third, which came to Kyle Isbell. That pitch was a bad pitch. It was a 2-2 fastball, middle. Isbell turned on it. The first 2 home runs, and I was really hoping I'd be able to make this point on the podcast, because after the first 2 home runs, people were on Twitter saying, take him out, it's not his day, blah, blah, blah. I don't disagree with that. However, look at the 2 pitches he gave up homers on in those first 2 batters. Fermin's was a 3-2 fastball that was up out of the zone at his hands that he turned on. That's a good pitch. Salvador Perez, it was a 1-0 pitch. It was a cutter that broke off the plate away, probably 8 inches out of the zone. Perez put a good swing on it. That's just getting beat by good hitting, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, I thought those 2 were good pitches.
The first home run to Fermin, that pitch, that ball, the way he hit it, where he hit it, I was shocked it wasn't foul.
Yeah.
I mean, he had to open up his shoulders, get his hands in. Where that pitch was located and where he hit it on the bat, I could not believe it wasn't a foul ball. It was a good pitch. I don't really recall.
It was on the inner black, 5 inches above the zone.
Yeah. Yeah. The one to Salvador Perez, I remember thinking that pitch wasn't even a strike. But I don't remember exactly where it was located. And
so it was,
he's Salvador Perez. It was
about belt high, probably 5-6 inches off the plate away, and it was a cutter. So it should have been a good miss. I'm surprised Perez went for it. He just put a really good swing on it. It's not a pitch you expect to give up a home run on. Whether or not that's where he was trying to put that pitch, I don't know. But that's generally not a pitch that gets driven out of the yard. And it just cleared Santander's glove on that right field wall.
Yeah.
But Grayson had 14 scoreless innings in a row coming into today's game. He needs to improve his command. I think we're all on the same page with that. But I saw some people today saying that he needs to be optioned. Not even close. First of all, who do you replace him with? And second of all, he's been too good overall to send down at this point.
If you're not optioning Kramer, if you're not optioning Bradish, you can't option Gibson. But if you're not optioning Kramer or Bradish, you're not optioning Grayson Rodriguez. He doesn't have anything to prove at AAA. And he's literally started to put it together. I mean, the start against the White Sox, 4 scoreless after that bad first inning. The start against Detroit in Baltimore, he went 5 scoreless. Yeah, it wasn't his greatest outing, but he kept them off the scoreboard. And then he went 5 scoreless in his last start, in arguably his most dominant performance of his big league career.
9 strikeouts, I think 3 base runners.
Yeah, he was damn good. Yeah, 2 hits, 1 walk. No runs, 9 strikeouts. It was one of his most dominant performances ever, and it was at the big league level. You're not optioning him. I firmly believe he will be their best starting pitcher by June. There's been some good, there's been some bad. Somebody said he's had all really bad starts except for one, and I was like, no. No. I look at his 6 starts, and I think there's 4 really good starts in there. The dud against Oakland and the dud today, and then the other 4, he gave up some runs in the first inning, but he was really good after those first innings. Yeah. And how uncanny is it that in 6 career starts he is still yet to retire the leadoff hitter? That's got to be some kind of record.
So I was thinking about that today, and there's like a part of me that obviously it's frustrating that he can't seem to get the leadoff guy out. There's a part of me that kind of hopes that continues as long as he gets out of the inning without giving up a run, just because I think it's funny. I think it's an absurd little streak that he's on.
Can't do that though, and you get a perfect game.
That's true. That's true. Well, how about this? When he finally retires the first batter, that's when he's going to go and throw his perfect game.
Yes, I agree.
And Paul, we went to the game. Excuse me. We went to the game.
We sure did.
It still happens at 28 years old.
It happens to me all the time.
We went to the game the day after we recorded our last podcast. It was that Monday night game. Dean Kremer pitched, and he had given up 4 runs by the end of the 3rd inning. Mm-hmm. And you asked me, if Kremer gets through 6 and doesn't give up another run, is this a good start? I said, absolutely. If you can settle in after a rough start, especially when your offense is backing you up and getting you back into the game, if you can settle in, the Orioles scored in the 4th and the 5th, and Kremer had shutdown innings in the top of the next inning each time. Mm-hmm. He ended up getting through 5 2/3, 4 runs to his line, which he had given up in the 2nd and 3rd innings. That's a good start as far as I'm concerned. Grayson has done that a couple times already this year where he struggles early and then figures it out and dominates and lets the offense get the team back into the game. That's what you want.
Yeah, and we're not sitting here saying that if you give up 4 runs in 6 innings, we think you did a good job.
No, but based on when you give up 4
runs early, when you're down like 4 after the 3rd inning, after the 2nd inning, after the 1st inning, and then you give up nothing after that, that is a good start. You kept your team in the ball game.
And you leave with the lead. Yeah, which is what Kremer did that night. I'm not worried about Grayson. I think he's going to work through some kinks. That's the way it goes with young pitchers. Although I say that, and we just saw two rookies take dueling no-hitters into the 6th inning in
the Mariners offense is really underperforming right now, and the Oakland A's, there's a reason they're 6-20, 26 or something like that. They're god awful.
I think 5 of their 6 wins have been by 1 run.
Yep. That's a fact. Bad. What I do want to talk about is the bullpen. And the bullpen's been good for the most part. I mean, today, when I say good for the most part, they've been really good for a really long time now. They came into today's game with the best ERA and the best bullpen ERA in baseball. And then they gave up 4 runs today, or 3 runs, and that's going to happen every now and again. But my bigger concern is that now you're heading in to face these really, really good teams, right? And your 4 best relievers pitched today. And Brian Baker threw 18 pitches. Danny Coulomb threw 21 pitches. Yennier Cano threw 31 pitches. And Felix Bautista threw 32 pitches. None of those guys are available to you tomorrow. None of them. And unless they're calling up Tate and Givens early, which I don't think they're going to do, who's pitching out of the bullpen? And you have Dean Kremer, who, let's face it, he's been your worst starter by a landslide this year. Who's going to come into the game in the 5th or the 6th inning when he inevitably has a blow up start? And I hate to say inevitably, but what has he shown to you other than a really good start against the Nationals that proves you that he's going to go out there and have a good game against the Atlanta Braves, who ain't the Nationals?
Right, not much. And I have this scrolling down a little bit to find this, but I was going to mention Cano and Bautista both throwing upwards of 30 pitches today. Keegan Aiken threw 26 yesterday, so you would think he would be available to give you an inning or 2 tomorrow. Mike Baumann was warming up. Well, I'll get to Baumann in a second. Austin Voth will also be available for tomorrow. Mike Baumann was warming up in the 9th inning today. It was the bottom of the 8th, top of the 9th. Baumann was warming up. The Orioles tacked on some insurance runs, went up by 4. Orioles still went with Bautista. I'm curious how you feel about that, because for me, I was kind of fine with it, only because, number one, Bautista hadn't pitched since, I think, Saturday in the 2nd game of the doubleheader. So you knew he was going to be fresh. I didn't think, however, he was going to come out and throw 32 pitches, which screws his availability for tomorrow. The reason I was okay with not going Baumann in a situation in which you'd probably expect to go Baumann and not your closer is looking at tomorrow's schedule and seeing that you've got Dean Kramer on the mound against Atlanta, and you might need a guy to give you 2 or 3 good innings in relief. And Baumann is the guy right now that I trust to do that.
Yeah. I was glad to see Bautista because, like you said, he hasn't pitched since Saturday. And not to mention, Kansas City was not going away. There was nothing that they had done in this game that made you think they were going to go away, right? That stadium, they were getting rowdy with it because they were like, oh man, we were down 8-1, we could win this ball game. Though their social media team got a little ahead of themselves.
Did you see that? Complete.
Come back complete, dude. It's the 7th inning. Yeah. Like, it's not complete. And
never count out the Baltimore Orioles.
Yeah, man, they have 11 comeback wins now. So yeah, I understand using Bautista today. I'm glad they didn't use Baumann because they're going to need him. But I also wouldn't be surprised to see a move tomorrow. Yeah. Maybe Keegan Aiken gets sent down for a reliever, or maybe they DFA Cionel Perez because he still hasn't been good. If these are in your notes, I didn't get to go down far enough to see them. I'm sorry.
I have 2 pages of notes for this one. So yes, it is in there. I do want to talk about Cionel Perez because we talked last week about how he has a long leash because he was very good last year.
And he has no options.
Right. He has a 1.40 ERA in 57 2/3 innings last year. This year has been a different story. First of all, inexplicably, he is still Brandon Hyde's bridge guy when the Orioles are up by 3 runs or fewer. Perez is still that middle inning guy in close games for some reason. He gave up a run on 3 hits in an inning and a third today, plus a second run, which was inherited from Grayson Rodriguez. Cionel Perez has made 13 appearances now in which he has faced more than one batter. I'm not counting the 2 in which he faced a single hitter. He's faced more than one batter 13 times this year. He has given up at least 1 run in 6 of them, at least 1 walk in 6 of them, at least 1 hit in 9 of them, multiple base runners in 10 of them, and he has struck out nobody in 7 of them. He's allowed 30 base runners in 12 innings. At what point does last year not matter? Because right now, he's flat out bad. He is hurting this team. He is hurting this bullpen. He is hurting the Orioles' chances of winning baseball games. At what point do you say, all right, I know he was good last year. I know someone's going to claim him off waivers if we DFA him, but we can't keep running him out there. At what point does that happen? Because I'm done. I'm tired of it.
Right now, I'd like to think that Brandon Hyde and Mike Elias got together and they were like, look, he's killing us. But we're facing some soft competition. Let's see if he can turn it around and build some confidence before we hit that May schedule. And he didn't. You can't go into this. Your next 10 opponents, I figured this out earlier this week, and it's not true now. The records, I think, are even better. But when I figured this out earlier this week, the Orioles' next 10 opponents were combined 170 and 110. Like, you can't trust him. And to your thing about how is he still Brandon Hyde's bridge guy in close games? They only play close games. You know, that they haven't blown. Their biggest win was 7-2 against Texas in the second series of the year. They don't blow teams out. There's no place to get him work. He's got to gain that confidence. Okay, so Austin Both has been a lot better recently, you know, and Baumann's been really good, you know, and like CNL, they have to make a roster move tomorrow. They have to get some bullpen help up here based on what their bullpen did today. They have to get some help, and Perez is the most logical option.
Let me give a rebuttal real quick. Yes, that it's true that the Orioles have not played any close games by final score. Tuesday night against Kansas City.
Blowouts, right?
What?
You mean blowouts?
Blowouts. Sorry,
you said they
haven't played any close games. Sorry, they haven't had any blowouts by final score. Tuesday night against the Orioles are up by 6. Hyde goes to Mike Baumann, who has an inexplicably bad performance. He gave up 3 runs. And then he went to Cionel Perez once it was a 3-run game.
That's true.
Why not flip that around? Why not give Perez a chance in a 6-run game to have a good outing in a low-stress situation? And then if he struggles, you go to Baumann or someone else later on. Why not give Perez that chance?
The only thing I can think of there is maybe he's thinking, okay, I got 6 innings out of Tyler Wells. Maybe I can get Baumann to cover the last 3. And then I don't need to use the rest of my bullpen, because he's probably thinking, we're probably winning the series against Kansas City, and I want to get my guys into Atlanta as fresh as possible. That's the only logical explanation I can think of. And I remember thinking that then probably wanted him to do what DL Hall did on Saturday, where he comes in and just finishes out the game.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Baumann hasn't been great his last 2 outings, so it didn't work out that way. But that's the only reasoning I can come up with.
That would make sense, and I hope that was Hyde's reasoning as well. But something that I guess just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. All right, let's talk a little bit more about the bullpen while we're here. Brian Baker has been very good. He loaded the bases today with 1 out and got yanked for Danny Coulombe, who has also been very good. Coulombe came in and struck out MJ Melendez and Nick Pratto. Melendez was 3 for 3 coming into that plate appearance. And I tweeted, because this was at a time when it looked like the Orioles were going to completely blow this lead and lose the game. I said, the Royals offense is hot, but Danny Coulombe. And I think that was a great joke.
I didn't see that.
And then Coulombe,
I didn't see that.
So then Coulombe comes back out for the 7th and allows the first 3 batters to reach base before Brandon Hyde gave him the hook and brought in Yennier Cano, who was the lone bright spot in the bullpen today. He gave up his 2nd hit of the season. It was a slider to Bobby Witt Jr. that would have hit any left-handed batter in the kneecap. Hi, Bruce. Hey,
Bruce,
buddy.
Say hi. Say hi.
Bruce, we haven't formally met yet.
Woof.
I locked my cats out, so they can't say hello.
He wants to eat dinner. That's what he's telling me. He's like, Dad, feed me. Soon.
Well, you can take a break if you need to.
He's good. He'll be all right.
Yennier Cano, so this hit he gave up to Bobby Witt was his first clean hit that he's allowed. The first was a Baltimore chop the other night that kind of fell into no man's land. Ramon Arias couldn't barehand it at second base. So he's given up 1 pure hit. And like I said, it was a slider that would have hit a left-handed batter in the kneecap. And Witt poked it past second base, which allowed one of Coulombe's runs to score. But Cano, that was the only hit he gave up, the only blemish. He struck out 3 in 2 scoreless innings. He still has a 0 ERA, and his whip is 0.14.
Mm-hmm.
He has allowed 14 100ths of a base runner to reach base per inning.
Well, for one, man, Bobby Witt looked like a star of the series.
Yeah.
Didn't he? He looked like a superstar.
Well, the whole Royals offense looked like superstars.
Yeah, but Bobby Witt, he did it on both sides.
Yeah.
He did it defensively. He made some plays today, man. He was
that pick on the Adley liner.
Mm-hmm. He was really good this series. He looked like a star. I'm a Bobby Witt guy. He was excellent this series. Yennier Cano he's a revelation. He has been an absolute revelation. When Felix Bautista won Reliever of the Month award, I said Yennier Cano would have won it if he had been up here 2 weeks earlier.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
He has been something else, and you can make the argument: why did he not start that inning? Like, to me, that's where I look at it, and like I get it. Danny Coulombe has been really reliable for your team this year, but he came into a high stress situation, a lot of stress, a lot of deep breaths. This is a 1-run ball game. I got to get out of this inning. And he did. He struck out 2 guys with the bases loaded, including a guy on a 3-2 count with 2 outs. And like, dude, you did your job. You did your job. Let me use Yennier for the for the 8th?
The 7th.
For the 7th. Let me use Yennier for the 7th. Maybe he can get me into the 8th too. And then maybe I can do Felix for a 4-out save or something like that. And like, to me, it's this guy did what you asked him to do. Don't put him in a position where now he's going to be the GOAT, right. Not, but again, I'm not hating on Brandon Hyde. I understand it because Danny Coulombe has been he's been arguably your best reliever, not named Cano or Bautista.
Yeah. It's one of those hindsight things where
right.
If in a perfect world, you understand that bringing out a reliever after the situation that you mentioned where it's high leverage, he comes in, does his job, bringing him back out to start that next inning, it feels like it never goes well.
Right. Well, and how
and
many
Cano
times
ended up going 2 innings anyway.
Right. And how often does that happen? Did that happen last year with like Joey Crable or Brian Baker, where you're like, why are you bringing this guy into the game? He comes in, he does the job. And then the Hide's like, to use a Buck Showalter phrase, I'm going to dry hump this. I'm going to send them out for the next inning too. And then they end up giving up 2 runs the next inning. They lost a game against Boston, not against Boston. They lost a game against the Cubs last year for that exact reasoning. Crable got him out of a bases loaded jam. They don't score, and then he comes in the next inning and he gives up a 2-run homer and they lose the game by a run. So it was sometimes it's a bit of a head scratcher. I will say I think Hyde's done a far better job this year. I like how he's managed the bullpen this year. For the most part, I like that he has his players' backs and they want to play for him. Some of the things he does, I still question, but he's been better this year. This was more of a hindsight thing than anything else. It wasn't something I thought of in the moment.
Fair enough. I also want to throw a bone to anybody who may think that we bash Brandon Hyde too much, because we do a fair amount on this show. I think we both kind of think he's far from perfect. I texted you the other night. Domingo Germán of the Yankees took a one-hit shutout into the 9th inning. He was at 82 pitches to start the inning, gave up a leadoff single, and Aaron Boone gave him the hook. Clay Holmes came in and ended up blowing it. And I texted you, it's good to see other managers making decisions like this, knowing that it's not only Brandon Hyde who would have done that, but Aaron Boone, who's supposed to be the manager of the most storied franchise in baseball, he's doing the same things. So sometimes I feel like we need to take a step back and realize managers make mistakes all the time across the league. And if they had the benefit of hindsight, it would happen far less. But unfortunately, that's just not the way it works. But wanted to give a shout out to Aaron Boone for blowing that lead against the Guardians. Clay Holmes came in. Wandy Peralta came in, gave up 3 runs in the top of the 9th. The Yankees lost 3-2. What
did I say to you though when he gave up that second? When they blew that game, and you're like, maybe this may be a worse managing decision than Brandon Hyde. And I said, to be fair though, in a 2-run ball game and the tying runs at the plate now, I'm pretty sure Hyde would have pulled the pitcher too.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. It's nice to see that it's not just Brandon Hyde. It's other managers would do these kind of things too. I think I would leave Germán in for, maybe give him one more batter. Clay Holmes hasn't been great this year, but anyway, we're not a Yankees podcast. We just don't like them. It was nice to see them blow a lead against the Guardians. And that was the game that dropped them into last place. Sole possession of last place.
No way. A team that's old, a team with guys who have a history of getting hurt, is hurt. Judge is out. Stanton's out. Rodon still hasn't pitched. Like, no way.
They seem to think that Rodon might, not pitch this year, it seems. Like, Boone keeps coming out and Cashman keep coming out and saying, his back just still hurts. He can't get over the hump with his back.
He's been injured every year but 2 in his career. I mean,
so maybe the Orioles dodged a bullet by not going out and signing a guy like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's talk about the offense, Paul, because today it was very good. And we're going to pretend the 6-0 shutout did not happen on Wednesday, because there was a lot of bright spots today.
It's funny because the Orioles were just pounding them on Tuesday. And I remember thinking, man, in years past, when the Orioles have a complete offensive explosion like this, they usually score 1 run or get shut out the next day. But I was like, not this year. This
Royals series, they scored 11, 0, and 13 runs in the 3 games, which is objectively hilarious. Anthony Santander hit his 3rd home run of the season today, came off of Jordan Lyles. He ended the game 2 for 5. He began the season, Paul, with 2 multi-hit games. And then between April 2nd and April 27th, Santander had 1 multi-hit game. He now has 4 in his last 5. It's really good to see him starting to heat up, because it was a rough stretch for Santander for a good chunk of April. And he's the guy the Orioles really need to get it going. Kyle Stowers, staying in the outfield, got his 2nd start. He went 0 for 4 with a walk. But he had 2 of the Orioles' 6 hardest hit balls of the afternoon today at 105.1 and a 102.4 mile an hour ground out, which came against the lefty. And I don't want to talk too much about this, but I was pretty pissed off yesterday's game when Hyde pinch hit McKenna for Stowers with 1 out in the 7th inning and a runner on base. Orioles were only down 2 at the time. And I'm sitting there thinking, all right, you bring in McKenna. First of all, I hate pinch hitting Stowers against the lefty in general. But you bring in McKenna. What happens in the 9th inning when McKenna's spot comes back up as the tying run? Granted, that didn't happen because the Orioles bullpen gave up 4 more runs. But it did happen. He came up with a runner on base, and Gunnar Henderson pinch hit, which is fine. But don't you want to keep I don't know, man. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse. I think Stowers is an everyday player. I think he should be in the lineup every day. I don't know.
I don't know that he's an everyday player. I don't know that because he hasn't gotten the opportunity to prove it. He also hasn't gotten the opportunity to prove that he isn't.
That's great. I should rephrase. I think that he should be given the opportunity to be an everyday player.
He deserves the opportunity. He deserves the opportunity. Now he's now had 6. Think about this. This is his second season. He's spent parts of 2 seasons in the big leagues.
Yeah.
He's had 6 plate appearances against lefties. 6.
Does that include the 2 today?
He had 2 today? I thought he just had 2 today.
Okay, Chapman in the 7th and Garrett in the 9th.
7. He's had 7 plate appearances. Still hasn't struck out. He has a home run, 2 hit by pitches, and then
a walk today.
And a walk today. And he had a ball hit 102.4 miles per hour right at the second baseman. I said when I saw McKenna pinch hit for Stowers, I said, so we live in a world where Ryan McKenna is considered a better hitting option than Kyle Stowers. And I said, that's ... something. And then somebody commented on it and they said, Stowers and McKenna were teammates in the minor leagues. And I guarantee this is the first time McKenna has ever pinch hit for Stowers. Guaranteed.
I might have to go back and find some data on that. I'm sure we could figure it out. It might take me a while.
He's probably right. I'd be willing to bet a few bucks on the fact that he's probably right.
Yeah.
It's you were talking about Cionel Perez. Hyde has his guys. He has his guys. He has his guys that he loves. Ryan McKenna's one.
So did Buck Showalter.
Yeah. Buck's guys didn't hurt the team.
Not as much.
Buck's guys were like J.J. Hardy. Right?
Ryan Flaherty.
Ryan Flaherty was better than Rougned Odor.
Yeah. I said he was.
He was fine as a utility player. You know, like I didn't love Ryan Flaherty, but he had 12 home runs one year or 10, something like that.
I mean, he's fine.
He was a former first-round pick who had 20 homers like 3 different times in the minors. He's a good player. Yeah, I mean, he was a good player and was serviceable for them.
Yeah.
I don't know. I want to hate on Brandon Hyde less this year.
Me too.
Some things still make me scratch my head. Pinch hitting McKenna for Stowers. And it's not like McKenna has been great against lefties this year. And he's a 208 hitter in his career against left-handed pitchers.
Yeah, he had a solid game against a left-hander. I think it was Matthew Boyd. I could be wrong. A few days ago. It brought his career average against left-handed pitchers up to like 212.
He started 2 games in a row this past weekend, and he had 3 hits in those 2 games combined. But they were his first hits in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
He hadn't had a hit since April 16th.
Okay. All right. We've talked a lot of trash about Ryan McKenna, and that's something that's probably going to continue. But I will give him his credit. He did hit a 2-run homer in a 6-4 victory. I'll thank him for that. I'm trying to forget about the drops pop up. I'm still a little mad about it, but that helped.
He had a big double the game before that too.
Yeah.
You know?
He has come through in a couple moments for us this year, so I'll give him credit for that. I still don't think he should be getting regular playing time by any stretch.
He's not.
No, but like it's every
he's
time
playing more than we'd like.
I'm like, Cedric Mullins. Let's talk about Cedric Mullins. He came through again today with runners in scoring position, bases clearing double to extend the Orioles' lead to 5-0. I want to read you his stats with runners in scoring position this season. He's 13 for 28, 6 extra base hits, 2 doubles, 2 triples, 2 home runs, 25 runs batted in, 11 walks, and 5 strikeouts. That is a 464, 600, 893 slash line. That's a 1493 OPS with runners in scoring position. Cedric Mullins has been fantastic for the Orioles this year.
Yeah, he's been not quite 2021 Cedi, better than 2022 Cedi. He's coming through in big situations. He's playing some pretty. He should have caught that ball today.
Yes.
He's had 3 of those now that he's dropped, but he had that stupid catch the other day.
Oh, it was crazy.
It was absolutely insane. So
you're a moron if you're diving toward the outfield wall, Bruce. And he nailed it.
Bruce just bashed his entire head into my kneecap. I don't know how he really knocked himself out.
He really
I don't know
wants
how he
dinner,
knocked
doesn't
himself out. He really does. Yes,
we're almost done.
Cedric has been something else this year. And, after he went cold after that Boston series, he's been really good. He's been really good for like 4 weeks now. Like 3-4 weeks now. He's been awesome. I love what Cedric's doing to the point where I think they should be having like behind the scenes extension talks with him.
I agree. Cedric's been great. He's also hitting left-handed pitchers very well this year, which is good to see.
God, my knee is like swelling up from his noggin. Oh my God.
Bruce,
and he's just looking at me like, feed me, Dad. Like, meanwhile, my knees, I'm gonna need a brace.
You're gonna be limping to his bowl. All right, then let me run through these last couple points I wanted to get to. Gunnar Henderson, he hit his 3rd homer of the year today, as did Anthony Santander. It was a 107.4 mile per hour, 425-foot rocket over the Royals bullpen. He also walked. He scored twice. He is second. So he has a 190 batting average. He needs to get the bat together a little bit, but he's second on the team in walks behind Adley Rutschman and 3rd in on-base percentage, despite that sub-Mendoza line batting average. When he starts hitting, Paul, he's going to be so good.
And it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Yes.
It's a matter of when, right? Because he's swinging through a lot of fastballs right now, and that's not going to continue. Gunnar's really good. He's really good. And I said on Tuesday that might be the game. He had a really good game on Tuesday. He played really good defensively. He had 3 walks. He thought he had a 4th walk. I bet when he went back in the dugout and looked at the video, he realized that was strike 3.
Yeah, it was
but he had a really good game on Tuesday. He didn't play yesterday, but then he hit a 2-run homer today. I didn't like pinch hitting for him with Ramon Arias, but it was awesome. It worked out. Arias
had 4 RBI
in 2 at bats today. He didn't even start the game. Gunner's going to put it together, but I said that Tuesday's game might be the day that we look at it, where we look back on this year and we say that's the day that Gunnar started to turn it around. I think he's starting to play a little bit more confidence, and I think he's on the cusp. And maybe playing some of this tougher competition is going to help him rise to the occasion a little bit. Maybe same thing with the pitching staff. Maybe facing some tougher teams, they're going to rise to the moment. You never know.
I'm curious to see what happens. He had that dive into home. Awesome slide, by the way. Brought his left hand in, hit it back
Great
out
slide.
to touch the plate. And then the top half of the next inning makes a ridiculous diving play at third base, lost his hat, and threw, I think, a 93-mile-an-hour dart to Ryan Mountcastle at first base to get the out. I didn't even mention Kyle Stowers, by the way. 98.5-mile-an-hour outfield assist at the plate.
That's insanity.
It was his momentum was carrying him toward the foul line.
Mm-hmm.
He threw a seed. Perfect throw.
I can't remember who the base runner was, but he was shocked that ball was there.
I think it was either Pasquantino or Prado. I think it was one of their first base.
I think it was Prado.
It wasn't the fastest guy, but yeah, I remember him turning around with that expression, like that.
Like what?
That ball was not supposed to be.
He wasn't even motoring. He was just like he was running, but he wasn't like trying to get there.
Right.
I don't think he saw it coming. I thought he thought for sure because it was on the line. Stowers' momentum carrying him into foul territory, and he was on second base.
Yeah.
It was absolutely insane.
That was a great play.
Before we go, I know you have another point. I do want to talk about Cowser and Westberg.
Sure. Yeah. They're both really freaking good.
Yeah. Westberg hit another home run today. Cowser's batting like 320, but he wasn't in the lineup. Westberg's batting like 340.
Kjerstad hit another homer at Bowie, by the way, like right before we started.
Well, I don't know who they're going to replace. If Hayes is injured or has to go on the IL, I think Cowser's coming up. But I think you can make a legitimate case now to send either McKenna or Stowers down. I hope it's McKenna. and have Cowser play every day and DH Santander more often than not. These guys and Jordan Westburg, Adam Frazier had a nice game today, and they're not going to get rid of him. They spent $8 million on him in the offseason, but I would much rather see Westburg playing now. And I like Adam Frazier. He puts the bat on the ball.
He got on base 4 times today.
Yeah, he got on base 4 times. He makes things happen. He's a professional hitter. But these dudes are they're otherworldly right now in the minors. There's nothing left for them to do down there.
And I think Westburg is now over 500 plate appearances at AAA. And the benchmark has been about 200 is when the Orioles start to consider bringing a guy up. Cowser is at approaching 270, I think. Westburg's over 500.
Minor league player of the year last year for the Orioles, Jordan Westburg. Yeah. And he's on pace to shatter what he did last year. And he had 27 homers and drove in 106 last year. And he's on pace to shatter both of those this year.
Yeah, it's absurd. So I wanted to talk about Ramon coming in for Gunnar in the 8th inning against Chapman, 2-run single and then a 2-run double in the 9th, 4 RBI and 2 plate appearances. Also stole a couple bases, as did Adam Frazier. The Orioles took advantage of Aroldis Chapman and his inability to hold runners on. They swiped 4 bags in that 8th inning against him, which was very, very exciting to see.
Yeah, they were running all day.
They were. I think it was 5 total steals. James McCann took a bag.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was in the 9th inning against Stalmont, but they weren't holding him on. He took the bag. So it was a strong offensive performance despite just 1 hit from the 4th through the 7th innings, which was a Mountcastle bloop double that should have been caught. But great performance from the offense today to come through and bail out what was a really bad pitching performance. Things are going to have to change if the Orioles want to be successful in this next stretch run. I believe I already ran through. I did when you were going to get your pizza. I ran through the opponents that we will face the rest of May. They won't play another team with a losing record until Memorial Day. That'll be the Cleveland Guardians, who are currently, I think, 14-17. I could be off on that, but
unless the Angels fall apart like they usually do between now and the 3rd week of May.
Yeah. By the way, speaking of the Angels, I had a buddy text me. I guess he did the math, and it looks like Shohei Ohtani is lined up for the game before that 4-game set to pitch. I'm pretty sure the other 4 starters in LA's rotation are left-handed pitchers.
Yeah.
I think it might be 4 lefties. Hi, Laura. It might be 4 lefties in that stretch for the Baltimore Orioles. They won't face a lefty. I think they're not going to avoid Max Fried. He was pushed back. Cool. So my tweet doesn't make sense anymore. They'll probably get McClanahan. You're still muted, by the way. They're going to get McClanahan, but a good stretch of right-handed pitchers after facing 14 of 29 left-handed starters over the first stretch of the season. That's a lot of lefties.
I think these teams are doing it intentionally. I think that they were lining up to lefties because they know that the Orioles struggled against them last year, and they've struggled a little bit against them this year. Oh, my gosh. This series
I wonder if that's why the Braves...
The series against the Braves is it's ridiculous. Oh my God. It's Kramer versus Fried, Bradish versus Strider, Wells versus Elder.
Yeah. So good Lord. Fried was originally lined up for today. So I guess they pushed him back to face the Orioles. So they might be doing it on purpose.
I'm sure they are.
They could be. So they'll get Max Fried. They'll get Shane McClanahan in the Tampa Bay series. They might get Rich Hill in Pittsburgh. He looks like he lines up to maybe hit one bookend of the series, but we'll see. Yeah, it's going to be a tough stretch. You mentioned Kramer versus Fried, Bradish versus Strider, Wells versus Bryce Elder.
Does this mean that Ryan McKenna is starting tomorrow?
Probably.
Good Lord.
You think he's not?
It's
against
I think he is.
You think Stowers is going to be on the bench? McKenna's going to be in there, probably hitting 7th.
Yep.
Ramon Arias is going to hit 4th. They're going to get McCann in the lineup.
Yep.
Tomorrow's going to be fun. Ronald Acuna, Paul, left the Braves game today after fouling a ball off of his knee. I don't know if it's serious, but I think they should just give him the weekend off. Let him recover. Take the weekend off.
If the Braves starting rotation wasn't in a minor car accident where they all sprained their ankles and they're going to miss each of their next starts, then it doesn't matter.
I want to bring up this comment. Yeah, it's pretty much what we've been talking about. Keep winning some series. Defense has been better as of late, but it does still have a little bit of ways to go. Continue to progress in the pitching department. They had a good stretch of pitching for a while It's fallen off a bit recently. Hopefully they can pick it back up.
The bullpen is still going to be still good.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Oh, yeah.
The bullpen is still good. The Kansas City was trying to win a series against a good team today.
Yeah.
Like the bullpen is still good. It's the starting rotation they had one really good week, and everybody failed this week. Every single starting pitcher since Saturday failed. They still managed to win. What was it? 4 of the 6 games since Saturday, or
they've still won every series.
Yeah. This starting pitching has got to get better. They've got to start pitching like they're capable of. Otherwise, I mean, this series against the Braves, man, I'm not confident.
It could get ugly. It could.
Yeah.
I think I'll be happy if we can steal one of these games. Spencer Strider had a rough outing against the Mets his last time out. He struck out 8 in 5 innings, but gave up 4 runs. A little bit unlike him, but maybe he's off a little bit mechanically. Bryce Elder's a 23-year-old who has a 1.75 ERA this year, so it sounds like an easy game, but it's not. He was very good his last time out. I think 2 of his last 3 outings have been scoreless quality starts.
Mm-hmm.
So we will see what happens. But Paul, your wife's home.
He kind of looks like Dylan Bundy.
Who, Elder?
Yeah, I'm looking at his picture right now. He kind of looks like Dylan Bundy. Kind
of. Let's pull up his
small thumbnail under probable pitchers on the MLB app. He kind of looks like Dylan Bundy.
I can see it. I can see it a little bit,
especially from a distance and an angle.
He looks like a guy I went to high school with.
He looks like that dude looks like a dude.
He does. All right, Paul, your wife's home. Your pizza's probably getting cold. We're gonna leave it there for today. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel at Give That Fan a Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Give That Fan a Pod. Our episodes are streaming live on both of those platforms as we do them. And then they'll be posted later on Apple and Spotify, where we would love it if you could rate and review us. I think that's how we get more popular. I don't really know for sure. And then I wanted to end on a different note. And this is going to be something going forward. Anybody who knows me knows that I lost my godfather, Tim, who was a huge Orioles fan. I lost him in 2019 due to a fentanyl overdose. And last week, I lost another family member to the same thing. And so this is a cause that's really near and dear to me. So from here on out, we're going to end our episodes just by saying that if you or a loved one is struggling with addiction, please consider calling the National Substance Abuse Hotline at 1-800-662-4357. The fentanyl crisis is real. Chances are you or someone you know has been affected by it, and a simple phone call can save a life. So that's going to be part of our outro going forward. Thank you, as always, to Derek and Tony at Utah Street Report for hosting the pod. Thank you, Paul, for doing this with me. Next week, we will have Alex Fast, Orioles fan and vice president of Pitcher List, on the show. So we're very much looking forward to that. And we will see all of you then.